My wife became a doctor and celebrated by filing for divorce the same day. I signed without argument and vanished completely. She laughed with her colleagues about dead weight, never imagining I meant it when I left. 3 years later, she located me through hospital records, finding 200 missed calls and texts I'd ignored. I, 36 male, haven't told this story to many people, but I figure it's been long enough. About 3 years ago, I was 33. For the 7 years prior to that, my entire existence revolved around being the supportive husband. My now ex-wife was in medical school, and we lived like typical broke students. Our apartment was tiny. We lived off pasta and cheap coffee, and our budget was a tight spreadsheet I managed down to the penny. I worked what she told her friends was a remote IT job. It was just enough to cover her tuition when scholarships fell short, pay our rent, and buy her ridiculously expensive textbooks. I even sold my car to pay for her board prep course, telling her the transmission blew. I took the bus for a year, so she could have that edge. I thought we were a team, building a future together. I was all in. The day she passed her final boards was supposed to be our day. I'd never seen her so happy, and I felt it too. All the sacrifice was worth it. I scraped together enough to book a table at the one nice restaurant in our area, the kind with cloth napkins. I figured we'd finally get to breathe, to plan the life we'd been working towards. She sat down, didn't even glance at the menu, and slid a thick manila envelope across the table. It landed with a soft thud next to my water glass. "What's this?" I asked, smiling. "Your official license? We should get it framed." "It's divorce papers," she said. Her voice was completely flat, zero emotion. "Clinical. I filed this morning. I just need your signature." I just stared at her. My brain couldn't compute the words. It felt like the audio was out of sync with the video. "You what?" "We're supposed to be celebrating." "I am celebrating," she said, finally looking at me. "My new life, a life I earned. I've been a student for over a decade, and now I'm a doctor. I can't be held back by this." She made a vague gesture between the two of us. "Held back by this? What is this?" "Struggling," she said, and for the first time I heard genuine contempt in her voice. "Scraping by on an IT salary. I'm done with that. I need to be around people who are on my level, who understand the world I'm about to enter." The waiter came over then, all smiles. "Are we ready to order?" "He's just leaving," she told the waiter, without even looking at me. I numbly opened the envelope. It was an uncontested divorce. She'd already filled out the asset declaration herself. One 2015 Honda Accord, the one I bought for her, a joint savings account with about $12,000, and our apartment lease. She proposed a clean 50-50 split. It was ruthlessly efficient. I looked up at her. This was the woman I'd coached through panic attacks over exams, the woman I'd made thousands of flashcards for. She wasn't sad or nervous. She looked impatient, like I was the last item on a checklist she needed to finish. "So this is it?" was all I could manage. "It's for the best," she said. "A clean break. Let's not make it messy." I picked up the pen the waiter had left. I found the signature line on each page and signed. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just signed. I pushed the envelope back to her, stood up, and walked out of the restaurant, leaving her sitting there alone with her new life. I went back to our apartment, packed a single duffel bag with clothes, my laptop, and a specific hard drive. I left my key on the kitchen counter. I walked out and never looked back. Before midnight, my phone number was disconnected. I never touched our joint bank account. I didn't want the money. I just wanted to be gone. About a week later, a mutual friend, probably not knowing what to do, sent me a screenshot. It was from my ex-wife's social media. A picture of her and a bunch of other new residents, all holding champagne glasses in a fancy bar. The caption read, "Celebrating my degree and dropping 180 pounds of dead weight in the same week. Cheers to a brighter future." She was laughing with her friends. Dead weight. She had no idea how wrong she was. Here's the part she never knew. The remote IT job was a cover. My grandfather was a tech pioneer back in the 80s. He passed away about a year into our marriage and left me everything. A massive inheritance. I knew enough about the law to know that in our state, An inheritance is considered separate property, as long as you never, ever commingle it with marital assets. So I never did. I opened a trust and set up a small, regular draw that I call my salary. It was a tiny fraction of what I had, but it was enough to live on and pay her way. I did it because she had this powerful narrative about herself, the brilliant, struggling student pulling herself up by her bootstraps. She loved that story, and I loved her, so I played the part of the supportive, equally struggling husband. My plan was always that once she was a doctor, I'd reveal everything. I pictured us traveling, buying a real house, finally living without the constant stress of money. I thought it would be the ultimate we made it moment. Turns out, I was just a means to an end, a convenient stepping stone. The dead weight comment proved that. It wasn't the divorce that broke me. It was the sheer contempt, the belief that I was beneath her. So when I vanished, I truly vanished. I moved across the country, liquidated my conservative investments, and dove headfirst into my own ventures. I started 3 tech companies, 2 of them ironically specializing in AI-driven medical diagnostics and hospital logistics. I worked 80-hour weeks, not out of anger, but out of focus. I didn't date, barely saw friends, and had no social media presence. I just built my empire in silence. My net worth went from 7 figures to 10, and I honestly didn't think about her at all. Until about a month ago. It started with a block number, then another. I ignored them. Then a text. I know it's you. Pick up the phone. Then the email started pouring into an old, barely used account. You lied to me. You committed marital fraud. I'm reopening the divorce. You owe me everything. It escalated fast. Over the next week, I got over 200 missed calls, voicemails ranging from crying to screaming threats. It was unhinged. I couldn't figure out how she'd found me. I hadn't used my old name in any public-facing capacity for years. My lawyer called a few days later. You need to get down to my office. Immediately, your ex-wife and her father have filed a motion to set aside your divorce judgment on the grounds of concealed assets. I walked into the conference room, and there she was. She looked tired and hard. The optimism was gone, replaced by a sharp, angry energy. She was wearing expensive scrubs that looked more like a power suit. Beside her sat her father, a smug-looking lawyer I remember from our wedding. Well, her father began, trying to sound powerful. It seems my client was made aware of some significant assets you failed to disclose during the marriage. She's your daughter, I said, my voice flat. My client, he repeated, was the victim of gross marital fraud. Your little IT job was a lie. How did you find me? I asked, genuinely curious. She gave me a nasty smirk. I'm a doctor. Doctor, her last name, and you, apparently, were a patient. My stomach dropped. 3 months prior, I'd torn my ACL skiing and had surgery at a high-end orthopedic clinic. I used my real name and my excellent health insurance. You don't work at that clinic, I stated. No, she hissed, but I'm part of the same hospital network. I have access. One night I was bored and just curious. I ran your name, and there you were, your new address, your insurance policy, the kind no IT guy could ever afford, and your occupation listed as CEO. You lied to me for our entire marriage. Her father jumped back in. The fact is, you had millions. Under state law, she is entitled to 50% of all assets acquired during the marriage. We're talking a 9-figure sum. We've already filed a motion. You want half, I said, looking at her directly. I want the life you stole from me, she spat back, her voice shaking with rage. You let me struggle. You let me drown in nearly $300,000 of student loan debt when you could have paid it off with pocket change. I am owed that life. I paid for your food, your apartment, your books, I said quietly. I sold my car for you. You called me dead weight and threw me away the second you didn't need me anymore. You don't get to come back for a second helping. The court will disagree, her father boomed. No, they won't, I said. I slid a file of my own across the table to my lawyer. He opened it, reviewed the top page, and gave a slight, Satisfied smile. Let's get a few things straight, my lawyer said, his tone calm and professional. First, the inheritance. My client received it a year into your marriage. In this state, an inheritance is separate property unless commingled. It was never, ever commingled. The funds he used to support your life together were drawn from his personal trust. You have no legal claim to it. Period. You, as a lawyer, he said, nodding to her father, should know this. Her father's smug look started to fade. Second, my lawyer continued, the divorce itself. Doctor, her last name, you are the one who filled out the asset declaration. You presented it as a complete picture of your marital finances. My client simply agreed to your terms. Arguing that he misrepresented assets when you were the one who drew up the documents is a losing battle and an expensive one. He tricked me, she yelled, jumping to her feet. He knew I didn't know about his money. He just sat there and let me sign my life away. He let you show him exactly who you were. I said, speaking up for the first time in a while, you were so high on your own success and so busy looking down on me that you didn't do an ounce of homework. You just wanted the dead weight gone. This is unacceptable, her father blustered. It's about to get worse, my lawyer said, pulling out one last piece of paper. He slid it across the table. It was an IT audit log. My ex stared at it. What is this? That, I explained, is the audit log from the National Patient Database from 3 weeks ago. It shows your user ID, issued by your residency hospital, illegally accessing the private medical file of a non-patient. Me. You pulled my address, my insurance details, my private surgical history, everything. The color drained from her face. Her father snatched the paper, and his eyes went wide with panic. You accessed a private citizen's medical records for personal financial gain. I said, my voice cold as ice. That's not just something you get fired for. That's a massive HIPAA violation, a federal crime. We're talking $250,000 fine and up to 10 years in prison. You wouldn't, she whispered, finally looking at me not with contempt, but with pure terror. You tried to ruin my life after building your own on my back. I said, then you used the very power of the career I funded to illegally hunt me down and try to extort me. This is a negotiation. I stood up to leave. Here's the deal. You're going to sign a document, right now, withdrawing your motion. You will also sign an ironclad NDA promising to never contact me or my companies ever again. If you don't, my lawyer has 2 letters ready. One goes to the state medical board, which will suspend your license immediately. The other goes to U.S. Attorney's office, recommending federal prosecution. She just crumpled into her chair and started sobbing. Not sad tears, but the terrified, ugly cry of someone whose entire world has just been burned to the ground. You've ruined me, she choked out. No, I said from the doorway. You ruined yourself. You just tried to take me down with you. I walked out and let my lawyer handle the paperwork. I never filed complaints. I didn't have to. The threat was enough. The stress of the situation, however, apparently got to her. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that she and her father had a huge falling out, under pressure at work. Knowing I held her entire future in my hands, she made a critical error with a patient's medication. She wasn't fired for the HIPAA violation, but for incompetence. With that on her record, her medical career was over before it began. Last I heard, her parents had to sell their home to help cover her massive student loans, and she was working as a pharmaceutical sales rep. She called me dead weight, but she was the anchor all along. I just cut the rope